Welcome, everybody. It is Friday afternoon, but more importantly, it's Halloween, and it's the afternoon here in Southern California. It is Halloween evening over there on the East Coast. It might even be late on Halloween somewhere in this world. It might even be November 1st somewhere. But no matter where it is time for Cinema Crusaders Halloween edition. And all this month, once we got going and I got done with jury duty, we have been doing horror movies, and we are carrying on the horror movie goodness through November as well. So we're going to be continuing to do horror movies for another month because we missed some time because of circumstances beyond our control. But that pay that no mind. We are here today to talk about it's beginning to look a lot like a Black Christmas. Yes, Black Christmas from 1974. This movie was recommended by our very own Steve Shadewing Sellers. And speaking of my other fellow Crusaders, let's bring them in right now so we could get started talking about this movie. He is an author and comic book writer. He currently has a book out on Amazon called The Dread, and he is working on another novel as well. He is also an aficionado, oh, that is a big word, of horror movies of all types. And he is very knowledgeable in what he speaks, but not just horror movies and movies in general. I am talking about none other than Macabre Mike Nunnally. How you doing, Mike?
Yeah, baby. Halloween edition. That's what I'm talking about. Let's go.
All right. And then uh, bringing up the rear, he is last but certainly not least. He is also a comic book writer and author. He is an educator. He is the dean of comic book writing, writing all sorts of great, insightful columns for Comic Crusaders about such things as Chris Claremont's X-Men and more. He's also a role player and the owner of a beagle. I'm talking about none other than Steve Shadewing Sellers. How you doing, Steve?
I'm sorry, Dave. I'm afraid I can't do that. I mean, given who is in this movie, I just couldn't help but think of that. Like every time, like Olivia Hussey shuts him down, that's what she's basically saying to him.
Yeah. Oh man. And speaking of Olivia Hussey, I just got to get this out there. I'd never seen this movie before. As a teenager, young Nim was infatuated with Olivia Hussey since he saw her in Romeo and Juliet as a young Juliet. So seeing her again in this movie was really a shock. It was cool. And then as I was doing my research for the movie, I found out that Olivia Hussey was the voice of Talia in Batman the Animated Series of the DC Animated Universe. So,
One of them, yeah. Alan Slater also did it, but
oh, really?
particularly for the
Okay.
Demon's Quest. Yeah, but yeah, she was one of them.
Cool.
And she was also
Very cool.
in Star Wars: The Old Republic as a Jedi Master. So she's been around all over with voice work.
Yeah, I was a little surprised because I thought that she just kind of disappeared after Romeo and Juliet, and then you never heard from her again. And then here she is at Black Christmas, and then I come to find out she did a lot of voice work later on. So, yeah, and there's a whole other thing. If we wanted to go down that rabbit hole, she just recently filed a lawsuit. I don't even know where that went, but that is a whole other story for another time.
Yeah, and sadly, recently passed away as of late last year.
Yeah. We got a few comments real quick, and then we are going to get right into this movie. DT, before we got online, says, "Why has it got to be a Black Christmas?" I'm just asking a question. Hey, man, I don't know. There's Black Christmases, there's White Christmases, there's all sorts of Christmases. So, which reminds me.
Yeah, I mean, we're not doing DEI Christmas here.
Yeah, Pop says, "I'm all for a green Christmas. Smoke them if you got them." Yes, that is a different kind of Christmas. And then you go for a green Christmas like that, you're gonna start seeing Valentine's Day, if you know what I'm saying, and everything else in between. You'll be seeing other dimensions. But that is that.
You stepped into the twilight zone.
Yes. Picture a seed. All right. Black Christmas. Let me try and describe quickly the plot here so we could get into this. Now, before I do this, though, I want to make sure you all realize this. This movie came out before all of the almost all the horror movies that you are familiar with. So, as I'm describing this, if you hear tropes or you're like, "Oh, it's this again," realize that this is the original. This is the one that set down the marker. So everything else borrowed from this, and that's important to remember. So, what's that? Did you want to say something? No.
technically, technically, uh, it was Black Christmas and Texas Chainsaw Massacre that
Yeah.
set the trope standards that we see in like Hollywood in Halloween and Friday the 13th and so on.
Yep. All right, so here we go. The movie takes place in, of course, or a lot of the action takes place in a sorority house because it's always a sorority house. And we, as it comes on, and there's a Christmas party going on. First of all, we see a man with an incredible head of hair. He has got the greatest white fro I've ever seen in my life. Uh,
A
Gene
and
Bulma
Shalit.
white pro, I
yeah,
might
yeah,
add.
that fro, I think, it has come through the '70s. It is poking in my window over here. So, um, anyway, the killer, the deranged killer, who is murmuring to himself, is approaching the house. He wants to get in the house, and we never see the killer through the entire movie, and that is an important thing to. I don't know if that's new to this particular movie, but for the one of the first times that I could remember. You are never going to see the killer himself. You'll see a few glimpses. You see his hand once. I think you see his eyes once, but that's it. But a lot of times you are from the killer's point of view, the killer's perspective, which also happens in Friday the
Peeping Tom.
13th, if I remember. Yep. Okay.
Yeah, Psycho
Peeping
also
Tom.
does a lot of that.
The Peeping Tom started it. That came out in 1960, same year as Psycho, and you'll notice that Black Christmas totally borrows from that in multiple times.
Cool. See, this is why we love Mike, and we want him to be here no matter what. But the man is also an encyclopedia of knowledge, especially when it comes to horror movies. So and that's what we bring you here on Cinema Crusaders. So, but it's a new concept, that was probably still relatively new for most of the audience, and you never see the guy, but you're in his shoes as he walks. He eventually gets into the house, and long story
I gotta
short,
ask a question about that though. How the
yeah.
hell did he drag a body up those stairs through that tiny hole into the attic?
See,
That's it. I just gotta ask that.
we'll
Because he's
get
a
into
horror
this
movie
when we get.
villain, and
Yeah,
they never obey like the laws of logic or the universe.
Steve has the answer. I mean, clearly, in this genre, sometimes you just have to suspend disbelief on certain things, and we've already talked about this in some of the movies we've already done.
I
this
don't,
month,
which is
so.
why I don't. Which is why I'm not like as much of a horror fanatic as you guys.
So he gets in the house, and he makes his first kill that very evening, the first victim, and brings her up into the attic, and he kills her by suffocating her with a plastic bag, puts her in a rocking chair, and he's got her up there the whole time. She never stinks. That's another thing we have to suspend disbelief. She's not rotting or anything up there. Maybe because it's cold. We could explain the movie away. We'll do our own logic. But she's up there, and sure enough, her dad shows up to pick her up to take her home, and people are looking for her, and then she's reported missing. They start looking for her, and bit by bit, other people start dying. There are some other subplots, including Olivia Hussey's character, whose name is Jess. Her and her boyfriend are having arguments the whole time, and eventually find out that she is pregnant and she wants to have an abortion, and he doesn't want her to have an abortion. Plus, he wants to quit at a musical conservatory. But there's this whole thing going on. The police, there's a kind of a police subplot, but the general throughput of the story is they are looking for the original girl who's killed. Then the house mother goes missing, and people are going
Drunk Mrs.
home.
Garrett, I call her.
Yeah. And also, I forgot to mention, there are a series of obscene phone calls. That is very important to this story going. on, and those obscene phone calls are indeed coming from the killer. And so, as we go through the movie and they're trying to find these people, they find that there's a young high school girl that was killed and left in a park. It's never really made clear if the main killer of this movie, is the one who did it. The killer we'll call Billy. That's the nickname that's been given to him, though they don't mention that in the movie. But Billy, we're not sure if he killed that girl. Maybe we'll ask that question later on. But it freaks everybody out, and there's search parties going on. And eventually, there are 3 girls left in the dorm room. We've got Olivia Hussey's Jess, we've got Margot Kidder's Barb, and then I forget the name of the third character who is
I
left.
think it was Phyllis.
Yeah, Phyllis is going to die anyway. Sorry, spoilers, everybody. Phyllis is going to buy it. And she doesn't even buy it on screen. That's poor Phyllis. Yeah. We don't even get to see her big moment. And Olivia Hussey is there, and all this is happening without her knowing what's going on, and they're trying to trace these obscene phone calls, because to the police, this is what they think the real crime is the obscene phone calls. They are not onto the killer at all. And eventually they trace the call, and here's our first big trope. The call is coming from inside the house, and Olivia, get out, and of course the idiot lieutenant or the desk sergeant, freaks her out even more, and she goes to look for the killer.
That was just a dick.
Yeah. and of course the killer finds her, and she escapes, gets into the basement, and this whole time they've also laid down some clues, some little breadcrumbs for you that make you believe that Jess's boyfriend is the one who's possibly doing the killing, because he's upset that she's going to have an abortion, and he's leaving the conservatory and a bunch of other stuff.
Can I add just a little bit of flavor to that?
Sure.
Keep in mind the context for this movie. Roe versus Wade had just happened the year before. So this is a whole new concept that's kind of wanting to talk about this a little bit through the movie.
Absolutely. I picked up on that one as well. And so that's kind of like an undercurrent here going on. And conveniently or inconveniently, the boyfriend, whose name is
Peter, I believe.
Peter, shows up as Jess is
played
down
by
in
Dave
the basement.
Bowman.
Yeah, and he is huddling down there with her poker, her fireplace poker, trying to hide from the killer. And sure enough, in true Scream style, Peter shows up outside the window and kicks in the window to get in there looking for it. And it's like, Jess, what's wrong, Jess? And then we fade to black, and the police show up a few moments later, and Jess has clubbed Peter to death with the poker, and she's passed out. And she has killed the killer, or has she? Because the father of the first missing girl passes out, and as the police and everybody abandons Jess, who is unconscious in her bed in the sorority house, and leaves her absolutely alone, we hear the actual killer is still up in the attic. Nobody went to check the attic. Nobody has found 2 rotting bodies up there still. And the laugh echoes through the house as we pull back from the sorority house and fade to black. That is Black Christmas. So
I believe the Billy name comes from one of the characters he did on the phone. He referred to himself in first person as Billy.
Okay. And I have to say, the phone calls were genuinely disturbing. They were upsetting. So with that said, that is my quick, or mostly quick, summary of the movie. Let's go to our general thoughts on the film before we break it down a little further. And since this was Steve's recommendation, let's go to Mr. Shadewing first. General thoughts on the movie.
Yeah, this movie is a classic, and I think for a reason. Now, if you've seen like a million horror movies, a lot of things in this film are not going to surprise you. But you're going to see where they came from, which I think is important. I do think that it is a little predictable in terms of figuring out who they want you to think is the killer. I do think that there are certain elements where you can definitely see where they were not following Randy's rules to survive in a horror movie.
Yes.
Never. Yeah. And you can, and this is kind of like one of the movies that probably inspired that, the rules in Scream. So you definitely see that. But I will say, like, I think this movie has a lot of charm. I think there's some really good acting in it. I think you're going to see Margot Kidder, who actually knows how to spell for once. You're going to see stuff like that going on. And this is probably Olivia Hussey's most well-known role, and she's very good in it as the final girl. So yeah, I dig this film. It's not one of those that I go back to that often, but I think it's a movie that I respect at least.
Although I have to ask a question real quick before I go to Mike. I've seen Margot Kidder in quite a few things. Is it Margot Kidder a coincidence that all of her characters smoke, or do all of her characters smoke because they're being played by Margot Kidder? Because that woman is like a chimney, man. So
yeah, it could be either or both.
If I had to guess, I would say the latter.
Yeah, I think so too. So rest in peace to Margot Kidder, by the way, who didn't die because of smoking. So I'll just put that out. Mike Nunnally, what are your general thoughts on this movie?
I think it's a pretty good movie. It was actually my first run into. It was interesting seeing John Saxon. I'm being familiar with him from A Nightmare on Elm Street. That's basically I knew he had been in other roles, but it was nice to actually see him. I was, oh my god, he had hair at one point. It was. Yeah. But that was kind of cool. Did you want to say something?
I was going to say, in my head canon, John Saxon's character here, after these whole events, he and his wife and his daughter moved to Elm Street from here. So, you don't see Nancy, but Nancy is out there. So.
Yeah, well, this was after he was the villain in Mitchell.
Yeah. All right. Sorry to interject there. Keep going, Mike.
Quite all right. I guess the thing I like the most about it is the precedents that were set here. It's the same thing I like about Psycho and Peeping Tom. I like slashers is one of my favorite genres. So seeing the roots of these things and where people get these ideas, I appreciate that, not just as a horror fan, but as a writer, watching how things develop.
Definitely. I will say I've never seen this movie before. I recognize a lot of the tropes. However, and there were some things that I definitely saw coming. At the same time, from a modern standpoint, like, I was ready for the final girl to meet and kill the killer at the end. So, like, her being left behind made perfect sense to me. I was like, yeah, I saw that coming from a mile away. And the real killer is still in the house. I was expecting to be the final showdown, Sidney style, and she had to kill him on his own. But we didn't do that, and I think that's because this was an earlier time, so, and I appreciated that. The other thing I appreciated is, this is one of those movies I'd almost say it's like a bridge between the Alfred Hitchcock and pre-1970s version of horror movies, and we've got some other ones that define other genres as well, like Rosemary's Baby is from this general time frame and stuff like that. But I saw glimpses of Hitchcock in this, specifically when they killed Barb. So the close-ups on the little glass or crystal figurines that she's stabbed with, and then we pull back, and some of the shots and stuff like that. So, as somebody, and this is another thing we talk about on the show, who appreciates the genre, but we also talk about filmmaking and things like that, you can see that, a lot of people want to take horror movies for granted and say, oh, it's just about, tits and blood, and as long as you got those two things, then you got a horror movie. No. Sorry, folks.
This movie really didn't have either, it must be said.
Yeah. I mean, there was a little bit of blood, but it's obviously not, I don't know. It's not Saw, so Definitely.
Yeah, but what is, honestly?
Yeah. So, but yeah, you can see the is its own genre. It's finding its legs. It's going to a different place. There are different standards that are going to arise, and people are going to push those standards. And I think that is happening still to this day. So this is another reason why it's cool to see these movies and look back, and you can trace the evolution of the horror movie as we go through. But that is some elevated talk that we'll save for later.
I,
Uh,
I, I would like to talk
yep,
about something really quick. Um,
sure.
uh, there is actually a little bit of debate as to whether or not she is a final girl because she didn't do the things that you suggest. There was no that. In fact, they seem to imply, being that the killer is still in the house and she's there all alone, that she's going to die. So it kind of takes away that final girl thing. The final girl trope was not
maybe a
established until the
subversion.
Texas Chainsaw Massacre.
Yeah, she's
Well,
kind of a subversion in a way.
Well, but somebody has got to be the beginning of the final girl. Is she a final girl like we would think of as Nancy from
Yeah,
or as God, why can't I
maybe like
remember
a proto final girl.
or the final girl from the Halloween movies, and I am blanking on the name right now.
Laurie Strode.
God, yeah, Laurie. Or Sydney. No, she's not that kind of final girl, but I do think she's the final girl in the sense that she was the last one to survive. Although we're gonna ask that question at the end: did she die at the end, or what do we think happened? What is our head canon? We'll go there.
And she's clearly the heroine of the story. Like I think that's usually like one of the things that you usually see like with the final girls. It is definitely a movie about that person.
Well,
the thing that really makes it different is the ending seems to make an implication there. Had it not been for the ending, had it just like zoomed out and she was sleeping in the bed, total final girl.
One of the critiques that I would have of this movie, I will say, and then if we want to talk about it more, then we could go on or whatever we want to do. But one of the critiques I would say is that I don't know that this movie is as focused and as tight as later horror movies would go. So the story is really, I want to call it a snapshot type movie where we, out of nowhere, this camera shows up and we focus in on the sorority house that just so happens to have a killer going up into the attic. And then we have a snapshot of these people for a few days. And then once we're done with it, we just kind of pull out. We don't, that sounds really bad. Yeah, anyway, we just pull out and we leave it alone and we don't worry about what happens afterwards. We're very fast and loose with what we're doing with these people's lives, So I don't think that we
like
really,
sea turtles.
Yeah, we don't know what came before and we don't know what came after, and you just kind of get this window into this part of their life for a little bit, and that's it. So and that's a way of storytelling. It's different than what we do now. A lot of times things get wrapped up too tightly, I think, in modern movies. It's like they don't leave anything to chance or anything to the imagination. So what do you guys think about that real quick before we go to the actors and actresses?
You mentioned Rosemary's Baby. Rosemary's Baby specifically was the start of a genre called new horror, where things went in an entirely different dimension. Everything got wrapped up in a nice little bow, typically before you get to Rosemary's Baby. Suddenly, then you have this total ambiguity. You get the same thing going on here in Black Christmas, ambiguity at the end.
Yeah. And it's like, but all right, would you agree with me? And this is a question for both of you, that we have gone the opposite direction in not just horror movies, but movies in general nowadays, where a lot of times everything is wrapped up in a nice little bow by the time it's done, and there is nothing to think about at the end because we tell you exactly what's going on, and if we don't, we give you an end credit scene to make sure you know what happened. So
yeah.
I prefer there to be. I don't want everything left for me to figure out, but I do like there to be things to find.
Agree, and that's why I pointed out. It's like it's a critique. It's not necessarily a critique, more of an observation, I guess. But that's what I noticed about this movie. And then I love that you pointed out that Rosemary's Baby had done that as well. So that said, let's get into the. I want to start with the cast because the
Did
cast is
did
really
Steve
good.
want to say something? We kind of skipped over him.
I don't have a whole lot to add, really. I think it's one of those things where I think the basic structure needs to make sense. Like the foundational elements of the story need to make sense, and you need to see that. But that doesn't mean you have to tell everything.
Yes.
So, like if you look at something like Watchmen, you have no idea whether the journal actually made it into their hands or not, whether it got published or not, whether anybody believed it or not. It doesn't. But it doesn't change the fact that the structure of the story perfectly works. It's just one
Right.
of those things that I think adds spice to it, and that's really where ambiguity for me works best.
Cool. Um, so let's get into the cast, and we'll start it off here. I'm going to start it off with Steve again. Is there anybody that you would like particularly to point out and talk about real quick? I think I know who it's going to be, but
Yeah,
we'll let you start.
yeah, it's not going to surprise anybody. It's Barb.
Uh,
I will say, like, yeah, she's definitely one of those characters that's probably going to be a love it or hate it for some people. I really liked her mainly because I just thought that she was entertaining. Margot Kidder absolutely, steals like every scene she's in because she's working with these crazy lines and just kind of making the most of them. And it's like not only does she do these ridiculously drunk rants that are hilarious, there's also the element of she's somebody who calls things out and isn't afraid to say it, which is an interesting element that kind of like drives some of the plot, particularly with the police side of the story. And so I think that she works as like a secondary character to Jess, even though it's like she's gonna die, but and it sucks when it comes, but for the time that you have her, she's to me like a Vasquez, like that character I really didn't want to see die, but that's just the way it goes.
I was a little surprised that she died, really, because it's Margot Kidder, and for me, she's a huge name because I would know her first as Lois Lane. So the fact that she died in the movie, I was a little surprised at
And
first.
she can spell in this movie, which she can't as Lois Lane.
All right, Mike. What about you? Do you have a character that you would like, a character and or actor actress that you would like to mention specifically?
Honestly, the only real standout performance for me was Hussey.
Okay.
We've kind of covered on her a little bit. Margot Kidder's character reminds me of someone that I didn't like from my past, so she kind of graded me the wrong way. But I will say the fellatio line was actually pretty funny. Convincing him that was some kind of new call sign, that was hilarious.
Well, and then I have to add, and then they pay off the joke when the guy doesn't realize what fellatio means, and the other cops are making fun of him later on. That was funny. That was really good.
I get it. It's something dirty, right?
Yeah, maybe just a little bit. So.
But I guess the scene that particularly got me was towards the end, when she was trying to keep him on the phone, and I guess no, this was a little bit before that. When she was trying to get him to stop, the look on her face and the expression in her voice, like you could feel the emotion in her performance. And I guess it was that particular scene that really stood out to me as a real acting performance.
Yeah, I thought she was very good in this movie. I will say, like I said, I know Olivia Hussey mostly as Juliet from Romeo and Juliet from the '60s, the Zaffarelli film. I think that's the name of the guy. And unfortunately, and she was very young. He actually cast actors that at Romeo and Juliet were both 16 and 15 respectively. So supposedly the ages of Romeo and Juliet, and because of the time, They didn't think anything of doing it now, and this is what the lawsuit was about. There were sex scenes, and she was naked in it, and so was the guy. So as minors, which was not cool.
Problematic at the very least.
Yeah, exactly. So
how does one go about that? Like, this will be fine. Don't worry about it.
Hey, quick
Those
side
Italians,
story.
man.
When I got to interview Cassandra Peterson, she was telling me that her parents signed a release when she was 17 to be able to work topless in Vegas for a casino show. So you
Wow.
can sign a release. So yeah.
Apparently, things were a lot different than that back then in terms of what was allowed.
Exactly.
That stuff they say about what happens to showbiz kids is real, man. No doubt.
Yeah.
So believe it or not, I'll do a quick aside. One of the very cool things, it's Elvira, so it's sort of Halloween related. Her virtue and her not being taken advantage, at least in Vegas, she was saved by none other than the king himself, Elvis. She was at a party at Elvis's place as a showgirl, and Elvis got her out of there and away from some people that were going to do some bad things to her. So kudos to the late king.
Elvis has left the building.
Yeah. Elvis put her in the car and drove her away from trouble. So good for you, Elvis. So
yeah,
my respect.
That's why he's the king.
Yeah. My understanding was he was a fairly decent guy, but he was not one that you actually wanted to fuck with. I don't care. Yeah. I don't care how good of a singer he is, how gentle or friendly he seems to be on stage. Elvis will whoop you.
Yeah.
And he will do it wearing a Captain Marvel Jr. costume.
I'll just say it's been a few years since she released this book, but if you ever want a good read, and it's very interesting and fast read, a couple years ago, her autobiography came out of the one about Cassandra Peterson. It's really good. Oh. So, and you also find out why she hates Sharon Stone with a passion. So, which was interesting. So, yeah, check it out. It's a good read. Anyway, back to this. For me, I'm going to say the person who immediately stood out, and there is a number of people I see in this movie that I would recognize from other movies. Like, for instance, the first girl that was killed, she was in Strange Brew, I believe. She was in that movie. She was in a couple other things. But John Saxon as the lieutenant, he's basically literally the same exact character from Nightmare on Elm Street. Right. The mannerisms, the way he approaches everything, the way he talks to people. I'm serious. I could make a serious case here that is the same character who just moved from wherever they are here, this college, to Elm Street. But
I literally would not be surprised if the director had basically said, that performance you did for Black Christmas, just do that. Yeah. Don't do anything crazy or bizarre. Just do that and you'll be fine.
Yeah. But that said, he's very good at it. He's very, very good at it. I really appreciate it. In fact, I will say that all of the cops in the movie, their interactions and everything were really good. In fact, the desk sergeant, he's a dick, but he's a believable dick. So it's like,
and realistic for the time period.
Yeah.
Honestly, there was a time you called the cops. They would do everything they could to not help you and get you to give up before they bother sending someone out. Just like that guy on the phone.
Well, not only that, we're talking about, you were talking about Roe versus Wade and the time frame.
Right.
Well, as far as our modernized, there's a lot of things that we're grading in here. And one of them was when they're trying to report that this girl is missing and everything. And they're like, oh, she's just, you're just being overwrought or you're being emotional or you're doing, I was like, wow, I was like, oh my Lord, So, but let's be honest, this is kind of how it went back then, a lot of times. So I thought that was good. I appreciated that they played it straight. And I enjoyed it. And I thought John Saxon was really good at what he did. Also, the tracing of the telephone call, literally tracing the call, was interesting. I don't know if that's really how they did it back then, but watching it was a little infuriating. I was like, can you get another dude in there with you, at least one more guy, so you can like track this damn thing down, So
I was wondering about that too. They got one guy running through all those little hallways and stuff.
I was waiting for him to have to jump over like an alligator pit, like Pitfall, but something. I was like, God Almighty, get your fat ass moving through those telephone exchanges and find the damn thing,
And I had a question about this, so I looked it up.
Yep.
I was like, how the hell is he calling from the attic without a separate line in the house? And how do people not know there's but I found this out. In Canada, they have this whole thing where your phones work as an intercom. Well, you just dial the home phone number.
That makes sense because apparently the entire story they based Black Christmas on was based on something that happened in Canada. That was an urban legend.
I also thought that the house mother's phone was a separate number anyway, though. Or was I wrong about that?
I don't.
Because he was calling from the house mother's phone, I thought.
Unless was she staying up in the attic?
No, I thought he kept going down into the room to make the phone calls, but I don't think it's that important. But
as you mentioned, there are two corpses upstairs, and he killed them on the phone.
Oh, that's true. You're absolutely right, because he was sitting there on the phone talking while,
and you could hear them. They're all on the phone,
Well, but he does the same thing when he that must have been one long ass phone line, because when he kills Barb and then kills the other girl, Phyllis, goes in there. I think he's on the phone for that as well. So, man, what is that? That guy, he was from the future. He had a cell phone. That's what it was. He's from the future. All right. Anybody else that we need to mention specifically for their acting performances before we get on to Mr. Clark?
The guy who played Peter, I forget. I don't know exactly how to pronounce his name. I think it's Keir Delea. He was the guy that played Dave Bowman in 2001. That's mainly where I know him from. And he plays a very, very different character with Peter. There is a certain level of intensity that you see there that you do not see in his performance as Dave. And I think I think he came across pretty credibly.
He was really good. I also have to give a shout out to one of the other boyfriends. I can't remember his name, but he was rocking that man fur coat from the 70s. I don't think you can pull that look off anymore. I was like, dude, that is a style choice right there, man. That's almost as outrageous as the fro that never quit. So I was like, all right, good luck with that. Mike, you got anybody else you want to talk about?
No, I think we pretty much covered that.
All right. I do want to give a quick shout out to one other name that I recognized. And he actually played the phone voice of Billy, and that's Nick Mancuso. And I know him from...
I know that name.
I know the name, and I know that he did a lot of stuff behind the scenes, and he was kind of I think he was a playwright, he was a director, he did a variety of different things. He's one of those names that you recognize, but I can't remember him in stuff, but I saw the name and I saw that he did the voice, and the voice is genuinely creepy. So
did he work on Friday the 13th?
Let me see here. He did, let's see, Black Christmas. He did Ticket to Heaven, Legend of Walks for a Woman. I know that, but that's a TV show. No, he didn't do Friday the 13th that I could see.
I could have sworn there was a Mancuso on Friday the 13th.
Yeah, there is.
Okay, it's just not him. Okay.
Yeah. So I don't know, but the name is one that I recognize. I've seen him in other stuff, or seen his name in other stuff. So I wanted to point that out. All right. This movie was written by Roy Moore and directed by Bob Clark. I'm going to kind of lump them in together. I'm going to start with Mike. So you could go wherever you want or go both places, direction and writing. But what do you think about the work of those two, the two creatives behind this, Bob Clark and Roy Moore, the director and writer, respectively?
Well, as we talked a little bit before the show, there are some things. I mean, you have to do some suspension of disbelief when watching a lot of movies. Honestly, it's not just horror, but in other things. But there were some things that they didn't bother explaining. I guess one that really bothers me is how they managed to get that. We're talking about a rickety ladder going up a tiny little hole about yay big, and you're telling me some guy, a full-grown man and a full-grown woman, were dragged up that little staircase, and I don't.
He just shoved their asses up the chimney. He's like, "Broop," So,
I mean, they
That
Santa Claus the dude.
that would take some next level strength to be able to
oh yeah,
grab a full grown woman and huck her up some stairs.
yeah. And she
Yeah,
was, and let's be honest, folks, she was a full grown woman. She was not a
Yeah, drunk Mrs. Garrett. Yeah.
yeah. So yeah, and this ladder, when he says rickety, it's also straight up. We're not talking a little angle, nothing. It's
yeah,
vertical.
yeah.
So
It would have just been very awkward to try and get a body up there at all in any fashion, much less be able to do it so quietly that no one else in the house hears you do it.
mhm.
That
um
the writing could have used a little bit more work. Like for instance, you'll find in My Bloody Valentine, the writing is better.
well, and we've talked about this when we did another show together, Countless Corpses. Some of the movies that we enjoyed the most were the ones where the kills seemed to be actually plausible. You
Mm-hmm.
didn't have to be a uber strong revenant come back from the dead to be able to throw an arrow 80 feet and pierce the guy and put it into a concrete block. We're willing to suspend disbelief because it's Jason, but we're like, anybody else? I don't know
Right?
about that. So, yeah, you know,
Use the
so,
stab signal.
yeah. I got to bring the damn stab signal back next week.
I hope you
Remind
got
me.
that because I don't have the video anymore.
I will find it. So,
Okay.
or I'll recreate it. All right. I'm going to go to Steve next. What about you? Direction and writing for these two, Bob Clark and Roy Moore, respectively.
Yeah, I think the writing definitely has been thoroughly covered. There is some stuff that is just a bit silly. Not necessarily to like the extent of manifesting horror villain powers, to stupid degrees like we've seen in other movies, but definitely enough to raise eyebrows and say, yeah, that doesn't make a whole heck of a lot of sense. I think the direction is pretty solid, though. I mean, definitely the way that the camera follows the killer. Those are some really good scenes. It definitely is atmospheric at just the right moments. So the sorority house definitely can look creepy at various times, especially when they're showing the room where the girl and drunk Mrs. Garrett were killed. When we start seeing that. And you get like weird, but really kind of cool shots, like, the cat licking the face of the girl whose face is wrapped in plastic.
Yeah.
That's some creepy looking stuff. I mean, that does work.
But not too far off. I have been warned and heard many stories of cats actually eating their owners when they die.
Yeah.
And I will also say this, and I was going to say this for the end, but this goes into direction, and I'm curious what you guys think. One of the things that struck me and I thought was a interesting shot, and I also thought it was telling some part of the story, I'm just not sure what, is at the last shot as we're pulling back through this whole thing, the very first girl that was killed, who seems to have some importance to him because he took the time to bring her up there and he's talking to her and all this other stuff. But she is the window on the light on the upstairs window is on in the attic. You could see there, and you could see her face looking out with the bag over her head, but nobody notices, and I'm like, I just get the feeling like there's a subtle artistic message there. I don't know what it is because I'm not that clued in, I guess, but I thought it was interesting and definitely different, especially since the cop is in the front and the cop as we are ending the show, and he has no clue what the hell is going on. He's just out there being cold. So
maybe it was a bumbling cop moment, like in Halloween 5.
Yeah.
Where, you know what I mean? Because what you're saying is totally obvious. The light was on. You can see it from outside. It's like, how do you miss that? You're a detective, right?
And nobody went up in the attic. Nobody smelled 2 dead bodies that have been dead for 2 days, 3 days,
Right.
as it, whatever it is. I'm like, okay, so yeah, it's interesting to me, and if I really wanted to do the work for the movie, I'm sure I could go full English paper style, and bring Steve back to his roots and make something up about, oh, this is what it means, and this is the hidden layers, and it all comes back to sex. So
there, you joke about this, but there have been papers like that.
yeah. Oh, believe me, I know. I've written papers like that. Well, but that's a whole other thing. Real quick, I want to talk about the director. This is always interesting to me. So, Bob Clark is a Canadian filmmaker, and it's always interesting to me to watch the evolution or where some of these people go in their careers. Like the last movie we talked about, I believe that was the last movie, the first and last movie they ever directed, and then they disappear, or one of the movies that I've talked about. This guy, so 1974, this is his big break, and he does Black Christmas, and then he does a movie called Breaking Point that had Robert Culp in it. But then his next big break, so he goes from Black Christmas to doing 2 movies back to back that are in the same franchise. In 1981 and 1983, he directs Porky's and Porky's 2, different genre, and then goes directly from that.
Just a little.
The same guy who did
kind of see the connection, though.
Yeah, but the same guy who did Black Christmas and then Porky's and Porky's 2, also in 1983, he directed A Christmas Story that year that came out. So,
You'll shoot your guy, really?
Yeah. Yep. Bob Clark.
I gotta say, his direction was much better by the time he got to A Christmas Story.
And then
I can actually see like how this guy got that point, because I can definitely see like the comedic elements in this movie. I can definitely see where the sexual content went from being hinted at in this movie to going full on exploitative. I could see how that would work.
All right. But check this out. So he does a number of other movies, including Rhinestone, that starred Dolly Parton and Sylvester Stallone in 1984. But his next 2 movies that hit big time release, I don't know how successful they were at the box office. In 1999 and 2004, he once again did 2 movies of the same franchise. He did Baby Geniuses and Baby Geniuses 2. And we kind of wrapped it up.
Oh yeah, that was, those were probably career enders. Yeah.
Yeah. So
I don't know. Joe Dante got work after Gremlins 2. I'm just saying.
So I'm just, but if you look at that filmography, it kind of makes you scratch your head a little bit, and it's funny a lot of times when you look back at some of these filmographies and you're like, I got to know what the story is here. How do you go from Black Christmas to Porky's to A Christmas Story in the same year as Porky's 2? So I'm like, okay. All right. But definitely interesting. All right. Let's get to, I don't think, unless you guys want to go there, I don't think there's a whole lot to talk about with set design or special effects.
Really.
They're very minimal in this movie. There is a little bit of blood, but really nothing to write home about. As far as slashers go, this is positively tame. This is the rated G of slashers. So I would have to say, when it comes to like that kind of violence.
Well, technically, it is a pre-slasher, so it gets away with not quite going there.
Right. So
very
let's go then.
Yeah.
Let's go then to the final question that I really wanted to get to, and we kind of alluded to it at the beginning. Let's talk about our fan theories on what happens to Jess as we fade to black and we leave her in the house, because I think that's interesting. and I would love to hear what we have to say. And if you don't mind, I'm going to go back to Steve to start with this one, Mike, and then I will go to you. So, Steve, we pull back from the house. The cop is looking cold in front. The killer is still up in the attic with the light on. He's leaving a light on so you can go to a Hotel 6 or whatever it is. And he's up there with two dead bodies. And Jess is unconscious, mind you. They left her alone, unconscious, completely sedated in the sorority house. Is she a final girl? Is she dead woman sleeping? What do you think? What is going on here?
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, to me, the logical thing would be he killed her and then beat feet the hell out of there before the cops came back.
Yeah.
But I mean, is it impossible that he might have just said, you know what, it's not worth it. I want to let her live and just so she can face, the punishment for having killed Peter. and if he's really truly horrific like that.
Yeah.
But there are definitely different ways you could play it. Or he just ran. I mean, any of those are plausible, but more likely than not, she's probably dead. But
Interesting.
they might have left it. They might have left stuff open, for a sequel that never was made. So who knows?
I don't know if they went. It's possible. I don't know. I really couldn't tell you. Mike, what are your thoughts on this?
The guy seemed pretty intent on killing the girls. He kind of. I don't see any other way to take the ending other than he was going to kill her next. We know that he was still in the house. He was still doing his evil little laugh thing. We know that she's sedated in the bed. He's not even going to fight him. He just has to go down there and kill her. So I don't, and all the cops have given up. And as you pointed out earlier, not even bothered to look into the attic. I don't see why he would stop.
Right.
Otherwise, if he was going to stop, he would have left the house.
Plus, she's an easy target down there. But
yeah.
All right. Here's my thoughts on it, and curious what you guys think of this. So, I mostly agree with Mike here. So I'm like, I think she's dead. They left her there, and we just don't get to see her get killed, or worse. He shows no signs of wanting to do anything sexual, but she's passed out. Who knows?
He does the whole "I want to lick your."
Yeah, and it's graphic. Yes.
Yeah.
What's interesting to me is that while he kills the other girls, he seems, and he refers to them as sluts and this and that, and he seems to really want to kill them. There's a part of me that seemed to get this idea that he got off on just watching Jess and being like almost voyeuristic with her. And so I could see it if they wanted to have kept writing on this movie as him just absolutely creeping on her while the bodies are doing whatever they're doing, magically not rotting up until spring. It'd be interesting if like all of a sudden the house thawed out and then it starts smelling and you find out that he was up in the attic this whole time watching her and visiting her at night and standing over her and all this. It's really dark and disturbing. I almost wish it would almost be preferable that he attacked her, but I could see that because he kind of gave off that vibe as well. But to me, I was wondering what you guys thought of that. So
that could plausibly fit from a directorial point of view. We know that the killer POV that we see in Black Christmas was I guess I don't know it for a fact, but I have a hard time believing that was not inspired by Peeping Tom from 1960. And in that movie, he would, just like the name implies, he was a total voyeur before he would kill someone. And so, I mean, I guess if he was truly inspired by Peeping Tom, that fits into your theory.
Yeah, and it's almost like the other girls were just obstacles I mean, this is the feeling I got sometimes watching the movie. Like they were things that were in his way or annoying him because what he really wanted to do was make phone calls to Jess and watch her. You know, he was obsessed with her. And so, yeah, so I was kind of thinking of that aspect to it, which is even creepier. I mean, I don't know. It really kind of disturbing. What do you think about that, Steve?
I think that's entirely plausible, and I would say there definitely does seem to be a sense of psychological sadism with this guy. Like he definitely seems to get off on psychologically torturing her to a certain degree. With the scary phone calls, with all that other stuff. There is definitely a sexual voyeurism involved with him. Yeah, it's entirely possible that he would leave her alive just so he could continue to get his jollies off with her. And he's just killing the other people because they're in the way. I mean, that's certainly a plausible theory.
Well, and that begs a question. I think this is the final question. The final question. And I'm gonna go to Mike to this.
Whenever somebody says the final in horror, it's never the final. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
It's kind of like Final Fantasy. It's never final.
Yeah.
They're 16, and it's not final. No.
This goes to Mike first. There's certain horror movies we watch where the killer definitely, his main motivation and what he enjoys the most, or they enjoy the most, it's not always a guy, is the killing itself. In this particular movie, with this particular bad guy, do you think that the killing is his motivation, or, I'm just going to leave it open ended like that. What do you think about what does killing mean to this bad guy? So,
well, this guy's definitely a serial killer. There's no doubt about that. And with them, there are typically rituals involved in the killing where it's not just about someone dying, it is a ritual. And so my guess is that he seems to clearly have this hatred for women in general. And you can hear that. You can see that. Yeah. So I think that there is probably there is more to the killing ritual than just murdering them. That there's definitely some manipulation, some sadism going on there. That he definitely he's definitely trying to do that. And as far as sex goes, he seems to he talks about things he would like to do sexually in the same sentence almost as things that are just absolutely vile and hateful.
That's very interesting. If we wanted to really get into it psychologically to a serial killer, then we could probably hypothesize that he's probably impotent, and
right.
And a lot of his kills have to do either with like asphyxiation or penetration of the body with yeah, I've watched enough Criminal Minds to have a degree in criminal psychology. So there it is. What about you, Steve? What do you thoughts on this before we get out of here and wrap this up?
I would say there's definitely like a very weird love-hate thing going on. I think in the sense that this is a guy who definitely is a misogynist, definitely hates women for various reasons, and yet he's absolutely obsessed with this one. In a very sexual way. And I think, there's a certain frustration that I think comes out, from that. I think he just doesn't, I think it's just in some way, this inner conflict that he has is absolutely fueling what he's doing. And he definitely unloads.
Absolutely.
Cool.
You nailed that.
Very interesting. Very cool. All right. Well, that about does it for this movie, Black Christmas from 1974. I can announce that we're going to be watching The Last Supper from 1995. I'd never even heard of this movie before. This is Mike Nunley's recommendation. Sounds interesting. Has some very good actors and actresses in it. So we will bring that to you next week. Next Friday, we will be covering that movie. Make sure you tune in. I do want to say to all you out there, Halloween is just starting here on the West Coast, but no matter where you are, be safe. Whatever you're doing, if you choose to imbibe or whatever, Make sure you drive safe and everything else, and have a good spooky night. On behalf of myself and my fellow Cinema Crusaders, I'm just going to let them say goodbye to you. Mike, anything final to say before we get out of here?
Well, I'm you're really gonna enjoy the Last Supper. That's a new one. I think that has some twists that you're gonna be interested in. Also, if you're looking for something scary to read this Halloween, check out The Dread. It comes in all formats on Amazon.
Go check that out for sure. Yeah. And congratulations on your recent book signing as well. So
thank you.
Very cool. Over to you, Steve. Any final thoughts before we get out of here?
Yeah, not a whole lot. I think that this is definitely like one of those movies that you should watch if you want to understand like where a lot of modern horror tropes come from. Mm-hmm. It's definitely an important movie in the history of that. The Last Supper, I don't know very much about this movie. I guess we're going to go and see next week, but I have no preliminary thoughts, except that it sounds interesting from what little I've seen discussed of it.
Yeah, I'm expecting a big old WTF from both of you at least once.
Cool. Looking forward to
After Exit Stems, that's a high bar.
I'm always down for a good WTF. You know, in fact, I can't go to sleep at night without a WTF. So there it is. And on behalf of myself, I was just gonna say, if you get a chance, Space Monkeys is coming out February of 2026. Go check out the pre-launch, because if you sign up for the pre-launch, you get some special offers. So sign up for it on Kickstarter today. And with that, we are going to wrap this up because I got to get on to my, I don't know, like 10 millionth podcast of the day. Everything happened on Halloween today. So all of you have a wonderful Halloween. This weekend, watch some scary movies. Bundle up with somebody. Have a little fun. And keep that popcorn warm. We are out of here. Bye, everybody.
Yeah.